Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fulfillment podcast. I'm your host, Dave Goulas, and this week, my guest is the founder and CEO of Solving Work, Jessica Windham. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking the time. If you could, can you tell us what Solving Work is and how it came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Solving Work is my independent consulting company, and we do a lot in terms of shipping and transportation, um, making sure that the folks doing the work have the right processes in place, the right technologies in place, the right providers, whether that be carriers or maybe a 3PL, in place to achieve their goals. But before we do that, we go upstream. We all know that volume, complexity, and disruption are up, but so is burnout and so is disengagement. So before we get into a consulting engagement, we say, hey, leader, do you have the bandwidth to be there for your team, to re-engage them, to make them part of this process? Because I don't ever want to do a consulting engagement where the impact doesn't outlast my tenure. So this is kind of like change management 101, but we really focus on re-engaging the leader and the team, and then doing the standard consulting stuff on process, technology, carriers.
Okay. That's certainly a different approach, at least from the logistics consultants that I've encountered. All the ones I've talked to have talked about like the processes and the kind of the blocking and tackling of logistics. Um, how big of a problem is burnout and disengagement, particularly in the logistics industry?
You know, it certainly is a problem everywhere. Most of what I talk about, all my friends outside the industry are like, oh, I know that feeling. And I'm like, yeah, but I think it was Supply Chain Brain that just said 69% of folks in our industry experienced burnout last year. So more than two-thirds. And in fact, I was in a LinkedIn group earlier this week, and it was like 87% of the respondents were looking for a new job in a logistics supply chain LinkedIn group. So folks are experiencing a fairly high level of dissatisfaction. And for me, my history, I've been with a carrier, I've been with a private fleet, I've been a shipper, 3PL. I'm your classic millennial. I've done all the jobs. I've sat on all sides of the table. And, no matter which side of the table in logistics I've been on, burnout has been a problem. And this is a 20-year problem. It's just come to a head post COVID, right? We typically go all hands on deck so often. And that was certainly true 2020 and beyond. And we really, at some point, have to take care of the fraying edges of our people in order to have bandwidth for innovation, to do really cool stuff.
Yeah. And that reminds me of something I saw on your LinkedIn profile where you talk in detail about what you call the logistics doom loop. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, this is a familiar pattern, I'm sure. But we all in logistics, we love to solve problems. We love to achieve big things. That's I think a hallmark of the folks that work in this space. So beginning of the year, we're all excited and energized. We make a plan, it's going great, and then the supply chain disruption hits. We go all hands on deck, we figure it out, and then we circle back to those goals and we realize how far behind we are. We have a little bit of a freak out, only to then say, all right, let's buckle down. I'll make a new plan. And by the time you get your new plan going, the next disruption hits. And so you just get further and further and further behind. And that's where the burnout comes in, because there's this sense of hopelessness that can creep in. So so that's really what we have to attack. And my perspective is, in order to disrupt the doom loop instead of to be disrupted by it, you have to cultivate an intentional bandwidth in your day, in your department, in order to withstand the disruptions, to be able to problem solve through them so that they don't throw you all the way into chaos.
Okay. And what I saw another one of your posts too, and it's kind of speaking to this topic in terms of bandwidth and handling tasks properly. But I think the post was titled "I love email," and and then you went into basically using your task list and how you manage your email. Can you just speak a little bit about why that's so important?
A- Absolutely. So, and I was just talking to someone about this earlier today, and it kind of goes back to having the bandwidth to disrupt the doom loop instead of being disrupted by it. I think the average number of times you check your email in an hour is close to 60. And if you think about it, each time the ding comes, if you go back in there and you just get sucked into what you're doing, you can spend most of your time in your inbox instead of strategically thinking, instead of hitting all your one on ones with your people, instead of being able to be proactive in avoiding problems instead of reactively doing the tactical firefighting that is somewhat a hallmark of logistics and shipping and transportation. So for me, my email inbox is the number one place that I'm getting inputs. And if I have that on lock, then I'll have the mental and emotional clarity to approach the rest of my day. And that's why I think that email is so central and so important. And when that changes, when if your organization uses Slack or whatever, then you just need to be the master of that channel instead of email. But this is central to getting ahead of the problem.
Okay. Um, Now also, so you had, I looked at your background and you had a variety of, like you said, logistics roles and with some big box companies and carriers and different aspects. So after going through like the full circle experience of logistics, what made you decide to go out on your own?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm almost 40, and I think everyone, when they get to close to 40, they're like, I think I should go out on my own. I think I should do this myself. And everyone wants to, well, I don't know about everyone, but certainly me and a lot of the folks in my life wanted to take a chance on themselves. I had been building a leadership philosophy, a set of values around how to execute in this space at a high level. And I just wanted to back myself, to bet on myself, to say, does this message resonate with enough people to make this business viable? And I think the answer is yes. We'll the time will tell. I've only been doing this for maybe 6 months or so, but being able to put this conversation at the forefront is, I think, even more important to me than the consulting work. Making sure that the people that are doing the work are central to the conversations we're having is what makes me so passionate about being out here in this space in this way.
Okay. Now also on your LinkedIn profile, in the header, you describe yourself as a logistics badass. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means?
Well, first off, I want to make sure anybody who gets on the phone with me isn't surprised if I drop a swear word. So I put it out there, right? I'm trying to show up in this space as authentically as possible because what's the fun of going out on your own if you don't get to be yourself? Um, and so that's one part about it. But the other part is that I've been there. I have been around the block. I have gotten the experience. I have the scars to prove it. And the badassery that has been born out of that is something that I wear proudly. And I'm just excited to be in the space, not only, being heart centered and people focused, but I'm trying to have fun. Like that's what's most important to me as I entrepreneur is, am I able to do this and actually get joy and laugh and smile and have a good time?
Love that. All right, and another post I saw recently is you're now an ambassador for the group called Ladies Who Logistic. Can you tell us
Yeah,
a little bit more about that?
absolutely. I'm so excited about this group. When I started my entrepreneurial journey, I was like, man, I should have been networking better for like the last 20 years, but I can't I can't go back in time. And I was so excited that Harshita and Tori and Amy founded this group in like November or December. And I had just been telling my business coach, man, if I could just find like a place where I can network with other women in the space, I know I could be really successful. I know I could really network authentically and grow my abilities in that area. And almost like the next day, I see Ladies Who Logistic come into existence. So now I'm an ambassador with the group. We're really there to amplify other women in this space, to support each other, to lift each other up, and to talk about some of the unique things in being a woman in this space, because there are still a lot of things that we face that maybe other folks um, don't. So it's been really great to have a place to go to connect and to network. And at Manifest, we had an event and there was like 4,500 people at Manifest, but to be in this smaller contained group and be supported there was kind of a breath of fresh air in the midst of conference madness.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That was the women's luncheon, right, that they had there?
Well, actually, we did our own Topgolf event off-site. So
Ah,
most of us did attend the luncheon and that was excellent, but the Ladies Who Logistics specifically kind of did a off-site where we could just get together and take a breather.
okay. Okay, cool. And also some of your other posts I just want to get into. So one of them where you were talking about boundaries and you're talking about what good is technology if you can't leverage it to suit your needs. And also in that post is just because we can doesn't mean we should. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is a challenge and I don't know if I have the ultimate answer in this area, but as shipping and logistics becomes 24/7, as we get closer and closer to that end-to-end visibility that we all want, we now have the folks in this space that can be working 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And we have to find a way to draw some boundaries so that we can maintain, again, that bandwidth so that we can problem solve when we really need to problem solve. So we can go all hands on deck when there's a true emergency. And I think the ha- the thing we fall into is going making the non-urgent urgent and always being plugged in and always being aware. Like I know for myself at the end of a long week, going for a hike, I'm a hiker, do that a lot, or hitting the pickleball court, like getting away from my phone, getting away from cell phone service and just being outside has such a benefit. Now, if I'm working for an organization where I always have to have my phone on me, I'm going to burn out faster than if I had the chance to truly recharge, to truly, you know, get some restorative rest.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot more focus on employee self-care and boundaries in terms of, emails during certain hours and whatnot. How big of a problem do you think that still is within the industry in terms of companies that are maybe crossing the line on boundaries and expecting too much from their workers?
I think it's still a huge issue. I think it's going to come to a head as we get more Gen Z into the workplace because say what you will, but man, they're good at setting boundaries. And I remember as a young, or I guess I'm an elder millennial, but when the elder millennials first entered the workforce, man, you would have thought that we were going to ruin everything. And so I try not to have that same point of view as Gen Z comes in. I'm like, what are they bringing that's unique? What are they bringing that's going to make us confront some of our habits that may or may not be what we want them to be? So I think it will only become more important. But the divide between the organizations that are taking your mental and emotional wellness in into play, like actually really doing things, really setting those boundaries, not just making unlimited PTO so that they don't have to pay it out when you quit, but like saying, get out of here, do rest, don't check your email. We're going to have enough staff to cover you when you take a vacation. Well-trained staff that you can trust. The companies that do that are going to continue to rise. The companies that leverage some of the more older school stuff that we're used to seeing in the industry, I think that they're going to begin to falter, especially as we get this new generation of workers into the workforce.
Interesting. Okay. And also another post too, where you're talking about the future of trucking. And you said, as much as we all want autonomous trucking, particularly for full truckloads. You hope it's at least a decade away because I don't have it written here, but it's you said that's scary AF.
It is. So, okay, I just bought a Tesla this past year and I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm using the adaptive cruise. Everything's going great. And then I'm on the middle of the highway and Tesla just slams on the brakes. Like literally, like if you press the gas, it'll go, right? But it would have taken me to a full and complete stop on the highway. Thankfully, there was no one behind us. It was fine. But like this phantom braking is an issue. So I don't think we're ready yet. And I think somebody in the comments on that post, which I really love, talked about the use case of, okay, well, let's master autonomous uh, vehicles in the yard, right? Let's get our yard jockeys autonomous and let's see if it can work in that environment. And then let's take it out where they're the human beings. And I like even on the Tesla self-driving, it's like, please be vigilant because the car will do the wrong thing at the exact wrong moment. Like, so it's just like not ready yet. So I'm like, let's take our time before we endanger lives. Like I love taking to there be an easier road for the folks that drive the trucks and move the goods around the country, but we have to put safety first and we have to make sure that we can maintain the same level of safety that we do now, which honestly isn't even good enough, right? We keep moving the bar, from before when you could fudge the records to now we have the electronic data logging, and we continue to move towards safer and safer. And I think at least right now, autonomous trucks would be a step back.
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting point. And yeah, like you said, right? It's you got to make sure the technology works before you roll it out.
Right.
So I know you're new into your entrepreneurial journey, 6 months or so, but given what the work you've done so far, what's been the best part?
I think the best part is all of the conversations that I get to have each and every day. Spoiler alert, entrepreneurship is a lot of networking, a lot of talking, a lot of meeting new people. And I get to show up as authentically as possible. I get to talk about this message that I'm super passionate about. I mean, I love a problem well solved, but even more than that, I love a team taken care of. So it's just been so beautiful to talk to so many folks in the industry and get the head nods and understand that like people are feeling seen, in these conversations, that they're feeling like they're not alone and we're able to start moving the ball forward. Just having the conversation, then of course doing the work.
Okay. And with, we're new into 2024 right now. What are you most excited about this upcoming year for your business and where logistics is going?
For the business, I'm just excited to work with as many teams as possible to create this new reality. And I think what I'm excited about is that we have the technology, we have the tools to hit the holy grail, to manage by exception, right? This is a thing that we've been talking about for years and years and years, and we're really getting there. But it's all about the fundamentals. Certainly the fundamentals within, how you manage your personal processes, like we talked about email, the fundamentals of how you run your teams and how you treat your people, but then also the fundamentals of the technology, right? How you implement, how you manage change, how you manage your data. So like as much as I'm excited about like what's on the horizon and what the future is, I love that it does all come back to the fundamentals and the foundation. And if we can impact that, like then you can really take off. So I'm just really pumped about, seeing those transformations take place in the industry.
Awesome. All right. And if people want to get in touch with you and learn more about your services and what you do, what's the best way they can do that?
Well, the number one way is LinkedIn. Find me there, engage, chat. So excited to have people engage with the content. I do really love that piece of this. But I also have a website, solvingwork.com, and I'll be at several conferences this year, Home Delivery World, Supply Chain USA, and Commit Events is doing their very first one in the US in Charlotte, and I think September, and I'll be going there as well. So I'm really excited to meet people in person as well as online.
Excellent. All right. So we'll link your info in the show notes. Appreciate you taking the time, Jessica.
Thank you so
And
much.
that's all the time we have for now. We will see you next time.